Let's venture down this rabbit hole. I know you haven't heard from me from a while. I just need to give your brain a rest. Give you a little taste of the truth. Pretty much what you're not used to. It's all these European disease, bureaucratic, plutocratic, aristocratic, pathological lies you're so used to hearing. I don't know if your ears could really handle the truth. The simple fact you got a criminal for a president is proof alone. It's indicative of your inept stupidity, ignorance, uninformed, controlled, conformed, compliant, slaves and sheep. As many times I can say this. To some of you so-called Americans, there's air between those ears. Because I even don't even consider that with the stupidity and the naive, gullible crap that's been going on with this country for decades and centuries. You don't think anymore. And the prime example is this. Why would you ever investigate a person that you would place in their fake ass false flag, the highest position in the country that you stole? Why would you even consider a criminal? If, by all intents and purposes, you talk about how civilized, honest, legit, ethical, moral, that you say you are. And you can't use the excuse, well, we didn't know. Because you knew about the Trump family for decades and centuries. FBI, CIA, NSA, Homeland Security, law enforcement. I don't get how you even can consider calling yourself having a Justice Department when the very so-called founders were thieves, pirates, and terrorists, and mercenaries and assassins, in the cesspools and gutters and swamps of Spain and England, so-called royalty, which they were nothing but common thieves and pirates themselves, hiding behind some God Save the Queen crown that's about as worth as the crap I flush every morning. What's indicative of your law is that you have criminals you called running your government, just like right now. You have a Russian mafia debt hoard who did everything he says he had or obtained was done by criminal acts. His casinos, his steaks, his hotels, his merchandise, he you look at his record, and he's supposed to be the best negotiator there is. He negotiates nothing. He negotiates failure, because that's what he was all his life, was a failure. And all he did was defraud banks, defraud creditors, defraud people who worked for him, and he paid no one. But this is a person you think has the ethics and moral and fortitude to become president of these so-called United States. And the moon's made out of green cheese too. If you had laws, if you had any kind of ethics committee, if you had any kind of intelligent investigators of criminal activity and corruption in this country. Now, Mueller may have this reputation of being the best of the best, but here's a question for you. How can a man that's investigating your so-called president, and that president you say has the ability to fire him? Now, I'm going to give you some examples of intelligence, not this naive, gullible, inept, ignorant stupidity that is out here that you keep spreading across the idiotube. Your news commentators and news agencies that saturate the TV screen every day with their pathological lies. And if they ever give any kind of truth, it's just tidbits. If your laws ever meant something, if your judges, your Supreme Court, your state, federal, local, any avenue of justice, you couldn't pardon anybody. In fact, you wouldn't want to pardon anybody if you're a so-called criminal. If, quote unquote, you had true justice, which you don't. You couldn't fire an FBI agent from investigating fraud within your so-called government, which is in all intents and purposes nothing but a diseased white filth European terrorist regime of theft and genocide. That's the first lie that you ever told, that there even exists a true justice department. It can't exist in a country of theft and genocide. And I don't care your Yale, Harvard, Oxford experts and political analysts and your law books of cobwebs, archives are nothing but lies. Because nothing of truth can come from theft and genocide. That's how you built this country, off of lies. Treaties, which were lies. Religions, which were lies. To coexist peacefully with the people that already were here, lies. Especially when you found out the rich mineral resources that they had. And the uncivilized barbaric heathenist act of, because you wanted these resources, you couldn't share them like civilized people do. You had to conquer and genocide innocent people. And the worst of it is that you put them on these slave camps, which you call reservations, that you give them a space in their own country you took them from, that you took from them. You demand that they live on reservations? And you talk about you have laws, you have justice, you have judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys. No, you don't. You got common filth of theft and genocide. And I know you don't want to hear this, but we're going to say it anyway. You're a bunch of lawless, barbaric, heathenish, uncivilized, subspecies parasites, blood-sucking leeches of humanity. That's what you are. Because anybody that genocides men, women, and children, you can't even conceive what justice is. It's like walking on water. It'll never happen. And I go back to the subject that I said before I was cut off by this YouTube so-called live. You can't pardon criminals. That's another thing. That's no such lie. Because if you're a criminal, you committed a crime, you go to prison. There's no pardoning. If that was the case, half the people that are in your slave camps you call prisons right now, which are mostly dominated by black and people of color, nobody would serve a prison term because you just pardoned. So your hypocrisy of your so-called justice system, which is nothing but a lawless terrorist regime, you would upheld that if anybody, I don't care who you are, committed a crime, you go to prison. Because if you or I would go out there and commit half the stuff this Scottish piece of filth committed, they throw you under the jail. And they know it. Why I said money talks and BS runs a marathon. How can a person fire a person who's investigating you? That's like if I was a drug lord and I got a cartel, syndicate, racketeering, money laundering. And you're investigating me. I go before a judge and tell him I want the FBI fired because they're investigating me. What do you think the judge is going to tell me? You're stupid. And he'll send my black ass to prison. Exactly my point. If you reverse that, got this white Scottish piece of crap, money laundering, racketeering, sexual pervert, incest inbred, sexually obsessed with his daughter. Father, another criminal, white supremacist. Uncle was a pimp, tax evader, grandfather who's a draft dodger, and you want to talk about your red, white, and blue, patriotism, the love of country, the love of God and country, and this is what you put as leadership in your stolen America. That's indicative. Because by right, that is the filth that you would put to run a terrorist regime. Exactly my point. Any honorable, civilized, ethical, moral person you wouldn't put there, because you knew they would uncover just like what I'm talking about, like what got President Kennedy killed, because he was going to expose and uncover everything that I'm talking about. And you talk about this garbage of reparations for black people. Reparations. 40 acres and a mule. For decades and centuries of murdering and massacring, slaughtering and hanging, tar and feathering, dragging behind trucks, cars, hung, lynched, and enslaved. And your reparations, just like your Constitution, not even worth the paper it's written on, and your preamble, and your national anthem. Criminals can't judge criminals. That's oxymoron. A paradox of hypocrisy and inept stupidity at its best. And just like you have fake ass president fires Comey because he's investigating his Russian masters, whores that pissed on him. Russian mafia that bought his debt that he couldn't pay back. Of all his business failures, Mr. McDonald eating, fat ass, adolescent tweeting, redneck out of Scotland. Now nothing but a debt goat to the Russian mafia. But you allow him to fire a man that's investigating him. You call that justice. It's like I said before, if that's the case, then everyone, I don't care who you are, you commit a crime, fire the person that's investigating you. Fire the cops. Fire the FBI. Anybody's investigating me, I committed a crime, just fire them. I'll never serve a day in prison. And that's pretty much what this criminal filth family is doing every day, committing crimes and never held accountable for it. Because when you do face accountability, we're going to fire the people. I'd love to have that power. I can go out and rob and steal, dude. Do anything I want. And when it comes down getting investigated, I fire the people. That's the perfect end game. But somehow, American people are so stupid and inept, ignorant, naive, and gullible that somehow you think because they said That's the power of a so-called president, and he's not a legit president. A criminal can't be president of anything because he's a criminal. And maybe I'm not making sense to a lot of you because you're inept, ignorant idiots anyway. You follow this propaganda, this terrorist regime for decades and centuries. Why it hasn't changed and why it's never going to change. It's like reprobates. You'd rather believe a lie than you believe truth. There is no truth in this country, and there never will be. I don't care how many pedestals you get behind and scream and preach at. I don't care how many podiums. I don't care how many churches you go to. It's all a lie. And until you give this country back to the people you stole it from, it will endlessly be a lie and propaganda of theft and pirates, of barbaric, inhumane genocide. And I don't care who a president is. I don't care how much power he has. He has no power to pardon anyone of a criminal act. Because in that case, you really don't have laws. You really don't have a justice system. You really don't have law enforcement or an FBI or CIA or anything that's supposed to uncover corruption and criminal acts when you yourselves are descendants of criminals, terrorists, pirates, and thieves. So tell me, how can that equate to a democracy of liberty and justice for all? It can't, because it's a bald-faced lie. And none of your media will tell you that. None of your media will tell you that the laws we have in this country are worthless. Just like the paper they're written on, just like the archived books in their law schools that gather dust and cobwebs, just as worthless as they are. And worthless as the men and women who keep practicing the laws of the terrorist regime of theft and genocide. And we can sit here and talk all day about laws. Laws don't exist, and they never will exist in this country until a Native America gets its land back, all of it. The next time you get stopped by a cop, you tell them, you can't arrest me, you can't give me a ticket because your laws are corrupt. Your laws are historical, pathological lies by criminal terrorists, pirates, and thieves. That's what you tell them. It's mind-boggling. It just is, and I'll never get that. how an intelligent, innately ethical, moral society of people can allow such filth to operate. But I accept that because you're not Americans. You're diseased European filth, the gutters, sewers, and swamps that they throw at you every day you live.